Hello everyone. I wanted to talk about Incredibles 3 for a little bit because I heard that there's gonna be a third Incredibles. Even before I heard that there was gonna be an Incredibles 3, I was thinking about what it should be about and what if there is an Incredibles 3? Here's what it should be about. So that's what I'm gonna be talking about today. As you can see, I am picking out a sticker for my little tiny sketchbook. But after that, I'm going to be drawing some of the characters aged up because I was thinking, you know how the first movie ends off in kind of a cliffhanger and then the second movie continues the story, but in the second movie, it ends on a non-cliffhanger. I mean, there's kind of like that robbery scene, but that is not with an actual supervillain. And so I was thinking they could do a time jump and show the kids older, even with Tony. So I'm thinking with this almost 10-year time jump that Violet and Tony will be married, because of course they will be. Violet will have told Tony about her whole family and how they're all supers and Tony is super supportive or whatever. But one day, Violet goes missing, and so Tony is left figuring out what's going on. So he calls up Dash, and Dash is a very popular superhero now, and he has made a name for himself, and he is just very popular. And so when he hears Tony's call, he rushes over immediately. Get it? Because he's fast. And so Tony tells him everything. So now Dash's new mission is to find his sister. He wants to find his sister as fast as possible because he's fast. But Tony wants to come with. And so I thought it'd be really funny if they were a funny duo and Dash is trying to, go fast and figure things out while Tony is, has a normal speed. As they're trying to figure all these things out, they eventually become closer as now brothers. The story will cut into two parts. One part with Violet and seeing how she's doing, and the second part is with Dash and Tony, figuring where she is. So now let's talk about where she is. I have a theory that Violet is not a biological par because she literally has different colored hair than her mom and dad. And you could say that that's because of her powers or whatever, but I doubt it. Here's what I think. I think that before Mr. and Mrs. Incredible got married, I think that they were on a mission and they saw a baby from the villain's lab. They're puzzled at this fact. There's a baby with the villain. They immediately want to protect the baby from this villain. So they think the right thing to do is to take the baby from the villain. And they never told Violet because they eventually realized that it might have been the wrong decision to take someone's baby. Also, she still has powers because the villain also has powers, so it still makes sense. Okay, now that backstory is complete and makes sense, we now see that the person who kidnapped Violet is her dad, which is a villain. And Violet doesn't know whether to believe that he is her dad because he's literally telling her that he is her dad. But he's still not a very nice guy. I mean, considering that he's a villain, he decides to, kidnap her instead of just talking to her. And he keeps her locked up in a jail while trying to explain everything. His methods are not great. And while this whole thing started as him wanting to see his daughter again, his motives started to change. Because once he figured out that she really had an amazing power, being able to turn invisible while also having a shield, he realized how much power she had, so he decided to keep her as long as possible so that maybe one day he could take her power or, do something bad. He tries to keep his intentions good in the eyes of Violet, but inside he just wants to use her. So as Dash and Tony are trying to find her, she becomes close and she starts to believe him that, first of all, he's her dad, but also she starts to get angry at Mr. and Mrs. Incredible, considering that they stole her from her dad, which now she really likes. So as she starts trusting him more, and he's wanting her power more, it's going to be harder and harder for Dash and Tony to save her. because she wants to stay. She does realize that it's a bit off that he's keeping her in this way and not letting her be, and so that's in the back of her mind. I'm also thinking about Jack, and so now he's older. He's probably around 20 or 19, somewhere around that young adult age, and so he's got like a lot of powers, and so he could also help out. But I've also heard this theory where he could also turn evil, because every single villain that we've won against in the first and second movie have powers, and so it'd be really interesting for the superheroes, the Incredibles, to battle someone with superpowers. And so, we could go with Violet's dad with superpowers, or we could also see Jack becoming evil and using his superpowers for evil and badness and destruction. I have no idea what to do with Mr. and Mrs. Incredibles during this whole time, because they could be helping find Violet, or they could be trying to run away because they know that there's a secret. So I don't know, they could be immature about it, but they could also help. It's kind of up in the air. I don't really know what to do with them. But eventually they'll probably say sorry. They'll have a moment with Violet and be like, we love you and stuff. So I don't really know what's going to happen with them. But that is a thing, a decision. Good thing I don't have to make it. So eventually, at the end of the story, Dash and Tony will have found Violet locked up and, be like, oh my goodness, there you are, and stuff. They have to talk her out of wanting to stay, because that's crazy. It's a villain, a bad guy who only wants her powers, and Dash and Tony realize this, but Violet does not. So it takes a while, but eventually they have to force her out of the jail cell, and when she's about to leave, the villain, the bad guy, Violet's dad, tries to stop them, and eventually accidentally confesses why he wanted her, not because of that, she's his daughter, but because she's got power and he wants her power. And so Violet eventually realized how lucky she is to be, basically saved from having to be raised by this maniac, this crazy guy. That is all I have. I would love to see an appearance of the bad girl from the second movie. What's her name? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. You should subscribe, please. I'm begging you, subscribe.